there's a little special surprise at the top of the fire tower.
That's right.
You've got to get your bib punched for one, but then there's also optional libations. What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Coaches on Couches.
Bing slouches with two very big non-slouches.
Non-slouches.
Here today.
We've got Brian Williams and Sean Hilsdon on the couch today. Race directors of Walking Tall, Big Hill Pond, 50K. What is the official name of the race?
Just read that hat, Dale.
Big Hill Pond, Walking Tall, 50K. It's called Big Hill Pond. It's called a million different things.
It's just Walking Tall 50K.
Yeah. Perfect.
There we go.
All right. I'm Coach Dale Sanford.
And I am Coach Bryant Funston. We are the co-founders of BPC Performance Coaching, where we specialize in helping time crunch athletes optimize their performance or optimize their busy schedules so they can maximize their athletic performance. Every BPC coach is trained in our 5 pillars coaching system that has been developed over the last decade through our work with athletes of all ages and ability levels, from fresh off the couch to world championship competitors. You can find out more about us by going to buildpeakcompete.com, checking Facebook and YouTube at Build Peak Compete, or all up on that Instagram at BPC Performance. Man, I messed that up.
Strike one, Funston.
My thing scrolled on me and I went back to the top. I was like,
All right, we'll get to it, but first, shout outs.
Shout outs. Love the shout outs.
I'll lead off here. So Philip Young and Heather Nichols down at Tupelo Sprint Tri. Philip took the overall male win and Heather was second overall female, so congrats to them on early season racing. What you got, Funston?
I got our homies that went and did Big Frog. Massive crew of people from Memphis. So a shout out. Naming all of them would take too long, but a massive shout out to all those that went over to Big Frog. We had athletes, we had friends that all went, and also last one, Will Levy knocked out his longest ride ever, Nashville to Sewanee, 109 miles, and set new power best for everything. So it was a good weekend for folks.
It's a good day on the bike.
Fellas,
what do
we got?
Both
of you have the same shout out, right?
Yeah, we got the same shout out. Well, with the North Mississippi Endurance Team, we do have some shout outs for some folks that went out to Tupelo and grabbed some age group places. I'd like to give a shout out to my wife for the Big Hill Pond race this weekend and for the Sheriff's Challenge 10K. It's a tough course, especially for a 10K. It'll wake you up. So shout out to her for getting first overall female.
Excellent.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to give a shout out to my son who was at the same race, and he ran the 5K and won the overall race.
Woo!
So my 14-year-old Adam Williams was the overall champion of the 5K. And I would also like to give out a shout out to my wife, Lori Williams, who is coming out of retirement. She's lovingly known as the running Antichrist, and her last big event was the Sillamore 50K in the ice year.
Oh, yeah.
And she retired immediately after that, and the Walking Tall 25K has intrigued her, and she registered last week.
There we go.
Excellent.
Yeah,
there we go. Cool. Don't call it a comeback, right?
So, and don't ask for a discount because my wife paid full price, and if she's paying, everybody else is paying too. It all goes to Big Hill Pond.
That's hilarious. All right, so let's hop to it. So you guys have, put massive time and energy into this race, and being an outsider, not doing a ton of trail racing myself, kind of seeing what you guys are putting into it, kind of gravitated toward it because you were just putting in such a big effort. I felt like try as hard as we can to get this race filled, and it's so close, and the park is so great. So before we go into the race too much, let's get an idea of what you guys do outside of race directing, because one, this is not your full-time gig, and two, you don't make a dime on this. You intentionally give it all back to the park and to the Rangers Association and all that stuff. So jump into your backgrounds.
Go for it, big dog.
All right, so in real life, I am a financial advisor for Raymond James, and I've been with Raymond James for 10 years, and I was with Merrill Lynch 10 years before that. But running and race directing has become almost a second career. My wife would tell you I probably spend more time doing that than actually at work. Raymond James wouldn't like to hear that.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yeah. By a career trade, I'm a civil engineer. I went to school at the University of Arkansas. I actually have a family of engineers. My dad and my grandfather are both civil engineers. And my son is actually showing signs of there's no way I'm going to keep him from being some type of engineer.
Oh, really?
He's a smart kid. As far as running goes, running outside for fun didn't really come along till about 2014 when I signed up for my first half marathon. But aside from that, health reasons and, just wanting to make a better life change. So kind of got into running. A year or so later, ran into the trail group and got with Brian and kind of hit it off with him. And, ever since we've been kind of running together, doing a lot of training for some of these harder races. And, as things build on each other, you just kind of spiral into, kind of keep going as long as you have success. I've been blessed with having some good races, so I'm going to keep going as long as my body will let me and keep chasing that next goal.
So you're en route to your first 100-miler, right now? I
am. Yeah, I am. I've been trying to take the slow train up the normal distances in the ultra side of it. So I've seen some people jump straight to the 100-miler, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. But I've wanted to kind of enjoy each distance and try to feel. The main thing is coming out of it healthy.
Sure.
Exactly.
Not too competitive with some of these guys because. A lot of these people get to train on some hard stuff out west, out east, and it's just hard to kind of compete with that on that level. But going out there, staying in the top half, maybe the top 30%, and trying to come out of it healthy is really the only goals I have in mind.
I mean, that's a huge thing along the way is just you got to keep the journey fun. And for us as coaches, we see it time and time again. You get somebody comes to you and they have a massive goal of doing this ultra endurance event, whether it's an Ironman or an ultra or 150, whatever, and then they don't kind of do that climbing the ladder of distances, and they'll go and they'll train for it and they'll finish it and then they're done.
Yeah.
Like mentally they don't really want to do it anymore, and you missed the point of the whole journey if you're just going straight to the big dog and then done. Check that off.
Yeah, it's definitely the journey's really worth it. For those that can be patient with it and really invest in it, it's worth it.
Well, plus when you finally get there, you're better trained, you have more experience, your performance is just going to be better if you do it right.
Yeah, you're able to handle that bigger load when you do the stair step versus going all the way in, and your variety of training.
Right.
Is so much better. Doing the shorter stuff first and using it as a stepping stool to go up the ranks, you can get that variety. When we were someone who just wants to go long right away, it's like, okay, well, get ready for a lot of zone 3 stuff, zone 2 stuff, and the training isn't super interesting.
No, you're making it work.
Exactly.
So when you guys how did you guys come up with the idea or even want to put on an ultra in West Tennessee?
Well, I think the area has needed a bigger event for a while. We've got a lot of races, and our ultra community is actually pretty large. I started running ultras maybe 10 years ago, ballpark, and you got a lot of great events, and the community is there. It's just they're all local events. It's kind of, once you've done a few of them, you've kind of done a few of them. The terrain is all the same, and people really don't have any idea that there is different things less than, an hour and a half away from Memphis, Tennessee. And there's a whole lot more. If you're in the ultra community and you're training for something, you'll get the same response. I'm going to the Red Loop this weekend, and that's the only place to go.
Yeah.
And there's more than that, and we just wanted to show that.
And give everyone a quick rundown of where this race actually takes place, geographically.
So geographically, this Big Hill Pond State Park is in McNairy County, which is from where we're sitting, we're in Germantown. You're about an hour and 15 minutes east. So just pretend like you're driving to Pickwick, and you'll get there.
Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty much due east. Like
Due east. I mean, you're right on the Mississippi-Tennessee line.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it actually I don't think it takes an hour and 15, but it's somewhere in there depending on lights.
Do the
and
legal
stops.
speed limit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I don't. That's, you know, I like to go fast.
Leadfoot over
Sean.
there. And that
Everything
van,
is
once
fast.
it gets
Everything.
up to speed.
Yeah, that van rolls, man. Yeah, so it's really, really close, and you've been running there for years, right? You have a place out there close by, so.
That's right. I've got some property 6 miles from the front door. And so as I've been training, you know, I go up there with the family and we fish and spend a week or weekends. You know, we go up there and run. I go up there and run all the time. And the park is just amazing, but the trail system was destroyed. I mean, it had been left alone to just kind of have trees falling on it for a decade or better. I mean, no telling how long it had been just ignored, because it's a poor, small community, and nobody's there, especially people running the trails. The only people that really went there were horse riders. And so, you know, I always used to laugh. I did the Barkley Fall Classic, and it seemed like every race I was training for was the Barkley Fall Classic, because you left there scratched up, torn up, jumping logs. And, you know, I just always wanted it to be nice. I wanted to be able to actually go out there and run.
Yeah.
And so I took Sean out there a couple of years ago, and we just, you know, if you've run enough races and you've been in the community long enough, sooner or later, I mean, there's a lot to talk about on the trail. You talk about, well, why don't we put a race on out here? And it just kind of evolved from that.
So it all started from the run you guys were doing together? Like, hey.
Training for, we were both signed up for the Barkley Fall Classic in 16, which was going to be my first major 50K. And, you know, he's like, let's go, you know, let's get our last big effort, you know, about a month out or so out there. And it was middle of August, and man, it was hot. And our friend Kieran came out and joined us, and, you know, we came back scratched up and just completely done. So we knew that, you know, we had given it our best, and, you know, if that wasn't good enough for Barkley, then there wasn't anything around here that was going to get you prepared for it.
Yeah.
So, but it did its job, you know. That park is tried and true with me. Every hard race I've had since then, we go out there and do the last long effort, and I'll always do my last long effort, you know, out there.
Well, and I think, as we kind of segue towards course description, I don't think people really realize how much elevation gain you can get on this side, you know, this side of the state. But, you know, talking to Dale afterwards, talking to Coach Chris, both of which who did the race, they're like, man, that was a challenging race.
The other day I tied a marathon, or a couple weeks ago, I tied a marathon together that had over 4,000 feet, had like 4,200 feet.
Whew. Yeah, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, the course, you know, you're talking about the course being, you know, overgrown and trees down, everything. It is not at all like that anymore. You guys have spent, I don't know, how many hours do you think you guys have spent working the trails out there?
Oh, I couldn't tell you how many hours we spent out there. It was every weekend for, you know, not every weekend, but for the last year, we'd go out there a couple times a month with chainsaws and weed whackers, and, you know, you'd clean the trail up, and, you know, you start with just a little narrow path, and then the next time you come through, you make it a little wider. We had to just continually repeat the same trail maintenance until we actually had a trail. And in some places, we had to completely rebuild the trail. I mean, we were out there with shovels and doing actual creation of trail.
And the park, were they like totally behind you guys on this whole thing, or?
The park was all in, surprisingly.
Yeah, they basically gave us the keys to the park and said, "We know you're going to do a good job." You know?
Really?
Justin King is the ranger out there, and he said yes to us when we spoke with him. And I was like, "Look, don't say yes unless you're going to spend some time with us, because we're going to come out here and we're going to have a race. We're going to do it." And you know, a lot of races you'll see the park, they enjoy getting the money, but they don't do the work. And he was out there. I mean, I can't tell you, he was out there every single time I was out there, chainsaw in hand or whatever we were doing for the day. He was out there all day on his days off, you know, the whole 9 yards.
Totally
and
behind it then, huh?
Totally behind it.
Yeah. And you can tell too, like, that the park is behind it because of one, how they prepared for the race. Like all, like, with all the campsites on race day, they were all like pristine, and they even loaded it up with firewood for everybody.
I know, that was
like,
really?
That was a last minute thing. Yeah, that was super nice.
I
mean, it was super.
You could tell that they were like ecstatic to have, the park full. But then like some of the bigger projects too, like there was a lot of fixes to the boardwalk and stuff like that had to be done that, I don't know that maybe you could do it on your own, but you'd have to have the assistance of the park to some extent to get all that lumber down there to help rebuild that boardwalk, because it was in bad shape there.
It was dangerous at some points. And, not only was we went down there several times and just had boardwalk days where all we did was work on the main boardwalk, which is, it's a little over half a mile. I think it's almost 3/4 of a mile, but we'd spend all day replacing wood that they had brought down, and the park the rangers got together. Justin got some rangers together, and they came down and had a whole weekend where, the park spent the money on the wood, and the rangers actually had a day down there, which was incredible. Yeah. Doing some of the stuff that we couldn't do or didn't really have permission to do. That structural things you kind of need the park to kind of.
Yeah. And we went and worked on it. The one time we went down there and worked on it, it actually rained on us, I believe, and it was raining that morning. So that immediately told us, like, man, some of this wood, is going to have a problem on race day. And then also it brought up the slick conditions when that old wood that has that moss layer on it,
it turns like oil.
As soon as it gets wet, it's like
it rained on race day too. So we were thankful that we had done the work, and we ended up slinging sand all over the boardwalk to kind of get some grip, which actually worked really well.
It did.
If you go down there today, there's still some sand on it. So it's.
So how many people would you guys sucker into going with you on these trail cleanup days?
Man, I used every friend I owe you that I could possibly, I've got
is on me. Yeah.
Well, and I don't want to forget about Todd Pitts. I know that we've called him out before, at the end of the race last year, and he got a kind of a special treat. But he really kind of spearheaded where we couldn't, time wise or work wise. He would go out there and do it. So there was one special guy, that really did a really great job. I mean, he was our third leg, where we really needed the help, and he just kind of.
So funny story about him. When we went out maybe 2 weekends before the race to run the trails, I was running with an athlete of ours, and we like came up behind a guy who was weed whacking some of the trails, and he could not hear us. And then we were like, "Hey!" And he goes, "Whoa!" And he spins around with the weed eater right in front of my face. I almost caught a weed eater in the face that day, but we scared the daylights out of him.
Who was that ran with you? I remember that run.
Jason Cruz.
Jason Cruz. That's right. And he came out to the race too.
Yeah, he was like 8th or something.
He did really good.
Yeah, good day.
Yeah, all your athletes did amazing. I mean, Chris came out, crushed it, won the 25K, and his wife did really well. I mean, it was just a great day for you.
It was a good day altogether.
Yeah, but, I have to say something about Chris though. We had that course preview, and he's probably going to hate me telling this story, but he came out, and I'm running behind him. I'm behind the lead group with maybe half a dozen folks in it, and I notice this guy doesn't have any water on him, no bottle.
Oh, come on, Chris.
And I'm like, okay, and I didn't. He had let it. His hair was different or something. I didn't recognize him from the back, and I asked him, I was like, "What's your name?" He said, "I'm Chris." Chris, oh yeah, man. I was like, "Where's your water?" And he's like, "I don't have water." So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and say it. I muled some water for him that day. So I think he learned his lesson, because he came back and did a great job on the 25K.
I don't think he was expecting it to be as difficult as it is.
I think that's the thing.
I think he didn't expect the water.
I'll be the first to tell you he wasn't. He came home. We saw the next week. We talked about it, and he's like, I could barely keep up going down some of those hills sometimes, and he was crushed, by the way, for days after that pre-run.
That makes me feel good.
Which we're going to get into. We're going to get into some tips for training, because you guys just mentioned, if you're not prepared for the course and you just assume, it's West Tennessee, how bad can it be? That'll come back.
So let's talk about it. Let's jump. So just brief rundown of the course, and then we'll kind of talk about some of the intricacies of it and whatnot.
I'll take this one if you don't.
Go for it.
Well, we had a 25K course set out, and we did a lot of that as our as our normal go out there, and most of that trail, most of that 25K would be what we did. It made a great loop, and in my mind, it's one of the best 25K courses out there because you really don't repeat anything on it. It's kind of a butterfly, what we call a butterfly loop, where you just kind of share that bridge across the water where you kind of come in and out. But you know, you get a little bit of road at the first half mile or so to string everybody out. And then you hit the course right by the ranger station, the visitor center, and immediately kind of go down and go through, and you get a little sneak peek of the woods and what kind of
you get to go downhill right away.
Much. And you got some technical stuff, and then you go across the bridge and you come up a pretty steep climb, and you get an idea of what kind of climbs you're going to have out there, and it gets your heart rate up immediately. You know, and then you hit some horse trail, and then it switches over. You cross over into the other side of the park where you've got, you know, the Big Hill Pond itself. You've got some really good contour trails that take you out. And when the leaves are down, in the winter especially, you can see out, and it looks like you're in East Tennessee or something. You know, you got those ridge lines and...
Yeah, that remote feel.
Yeah, and that's probably one of my favorite sections in the fall or in the winter when the leaves are down, is that you just get that feel like you're in a complete different place. You know, and you come around and you make your way through some pretty place. You don't really see any roads, especially when you run it and there's enough leaf cover where you can't see the logging road.
Okay.
That it may just be 100 yards from you, but you don't see it. So you feel like you're out in the middle of nowhere, and you know, you keep that feeling until you come upon the railroad tracks. Then you see your aid station, which, you know, the first aid station is not until 6.5 miles in.
Okay.
So that's the one thing that just requires people to carry, you know, one 20-ounce bottle for sure.
Yeah.
And then some people, you know, probably need 2 bottles.
How about 2 1-liter bottles?
Yeah. Oh yeah, you got your orange mud pack.
Because that's what I rolled with.
Yeah, if you run it hard enough and it's a warm day, like it ended up turning in to be quite a warm day last year, you know, you'll need some water, you'll need some salt before you even get to the first aid station if you want to stay ahead of the curve. But you know, once you hit that Dogwood Loop section that's south of the railroad tracks, you know, you're in for a really, really good treat as far as just being out in the middle of nowhere and seeing some swamp, seeing some kind of climbs, some good mountainous climbs, a really good descent. There's a 140-foot descent that you get right away. You climb up the 140 feet from the railroad tracks, and then you go down, and you actually drop about 25 feet below the railroad tracks when you get into the bottoms. And so you make a huge elevation change over maybe a third of a mile, half a mile.
That's a quad buster right there.
And then you get that in both directions if you're doing the 50K. So you get to experience the up and the down in you know, in both of its glories. Then you come back around and you you cross back over and go on the west side of the park, and you hit the Azalea Trail and Azalea Springs Trail, and you get some ferns. You kind of go through a fern forest where you're like, man, I'm like in a jungle. Then you hit the boardwalk. The boardwalk comes out of nowhere, you know.
Yeah.
And then you climb up to the tower, and just, you know,
that sounds like
pretty
cool.
You got to backtrack, man. You just tried to skip the tower.
Yeah, right.
I know.
That sounds like a highlight. Dale had the pain face picture from the fire tower.
The second time up the fire tower.
The second time at mile 21 will really knock your quads out.
Oh my gosh. Go up was fine. Going down was the problem.
Probably not something you see in many races. Adding a fire tower to the mix.
And, you know, it's the highest point on the park as well. And when you do the 50K, you're coming up the highest climb. The backside of the park is higher than the front side, so you actually have more. The 50K second half has more elevation than the 25.
So you just run this 2 different directions?
Well, he described it as a butterfly. So most of the courses, everybody runs the 25K, which is one wing. And then the 50Kers run the back half, which is the second wing of the butterfly with just a smidge overlap.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah, it's really not much.
Yeah, the overlap is all in the opposite direction.
Okay.
So the trail feels different.
Yeah.
Especially if you haven't been out there before and you're running this thing, you know, virgin straight off the bat, you don't even know where you're at. So you don't know that until you get to the railroad tracks, and you're like, okay, well, I've been here before. But then you run that loop counterclockwise instead of clockwise.
It looks different.
It looks different. The elevation comes at you different. And when you got those many miles on your legs, that course runs a lot harder counterclockwise.
Okay.
So it's...
Even without the miles, would you say it's harder?
You kind of, if you're fresh on it, there's a segment out there that we keep battling with. I think it's around 30 minutes or 32.
The Dogwood Loop is
it's 3.1 or
Strava segment.
3.2 miles. And it's got about 700 feet, something across there. I don't remember, but you can look at the segment.
Of up and down, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, so it's a fun, that is an awesome place if you want to go out and just get some fast hill repeats in the loop fashion. Mm-hmm. You go out there and park by the railroad tracks and try to beat that KOM.
Okay.
And so that's a fun thing to do.
So going around the loops, the 25K has to go up the fire tower. It's 84 steps? 81 steps. The 50K goes up twice.
Right. You catch it again at
and
mile
down.
21. And down.
There's a little special surprise at the top of the fire tower.
That's right.
You've got to get your bib punched for one, but then there's also optional libations.
Optional aid,
thank
absolutely.
You,
Thank you, Charlie from Lululemon.
Charlie
Graham
spearheaded that.
Yeah. And Connor Hayden took pictures up there, which turned out for some amazing
The pictures
shots.
were great.
The pictures are just
And by
high quality.
optional libations, we're talking...
Fireball.
Your normal trail fare.
Normal trail, optional libation.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
The fireball at the top of the fire tower when your lungs are on fire and your legs.
Yeah. And then you get to
bringing it all together.
It is.
That's like poetic, really.
So my favorite picture from last year is a buddy of mine, Michael Herons, who is scared of heights. And we took him out there to run a few times. And he refused. He would not go up. You'd go up there with your buddies and you wouldn't think anything about it. And you'd look down and there'd be Michael at the bottom. He'd be like, come on up. And no way. Nope. So during the race, he actually got enough guts to get to the top.
He wasn't going to do it.
He wasn't going to do it.
Really?
But you get a fire tower challenge coin for going up. So you get extra bling for getting your bib punched. And so he got up there. And my favorite picture is him taking a fireball shot. He is just overjoyed. The relief of being done with the fire tower along with a little drink.
You've been stressing about it for weeks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Now, one thing I'll say about the fire tower and the challenge coin, I don't know if we would have had the challenge coin if we hadn't been surprised by the fact that we were only about 30% of the people we were taking up there were doing the fire tower. I think, or maybe it was the other way around. About 30%.
About 30 would say no.
Yeah.
And it'd be people that you would have no idea. It'd be like if we went on a group run and all of a sudden you decided you'd look down and you're not going up. And it'd be like, why? Why aren't you coming up? And so we decided to make it part of the, give it a little extra to give people a little incentive to go up and a little extra challenge.
I like it.
Yeah.
That's cool.
I think it's great. The fire tower is like solid. There's no movement to that. I've been on some fire towers that are a little sketchy.
It's not like a fire ladder?
No. That thing's solid as can be.
Well, you've got to figure that the park ranger, this is a state park, and they're allowing us to go up 400 people to run up their fire tower, and in some cases twice. It's got to be pretty safe. It's certainly, if you're scared of heights, it's going to be, and you can see through it, which doesn't help, but it is solid. It's not going to sway in the wind or anything.
Yeah.
So all you that are scared of heights, don't worry about it.
And the good news is that as you come up the ladder or the stairs, they alternate in the middle to kind of help balance the metal on the structure, so that you don't get that, at least for a little bit, the drip of the sweat coming off of everybody above you. More than likely, there's a 50% chance you're going to miss that.
Don't look up with your mouth open?
Don't look up with your mouth open.
So it's kind of become our, if you've ever run Sillamore, everybody dreads the creek crossing. And that's all people talk about going into a month. What am I going to do when I get to the creek crossing? The fire tower has become our creek crossing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think it's a very special part of the course of the race, and it's on the logo.
There you go.
That's right.
Isn't it? It was on the logo.
It's
on the website.
It's on the website.
It's on the website.
It's on the official.
WalkingTall50k.com.
Yeah. So, it is definitely a special part of the course. So, let's talk.
Total elevation gain?
Yeah, it's...
For the 25K is 2,000 and the 50K is 4,200, which I always relate it to Sillamore if you've run Sillamore. Sillamore is, 3,500 right there total?
Yeah, that's about right.
So it kind of puts you where 700 more than Sillamore.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah, for those in the Memphis area. That's kind of
of course.
And
is that with the fire tower?
That's with the fire
That is
tower.
with the fire tower. And you can, if you look at your elevation profile on Garmin or Strava or whatever, Garmin's the best because it gives you that accuracy. You get your little spike right there.
Yeah, you can see where it is on the course. You know
awesome.
it's coming.
Yeah. So let's kind of transition a little bit and talk about like how you guys ended up getting so many people in the first year, because that's from what I understand and from being in this industry a long time, that's like unheard of to get, especially for an ultra trail race, to get 300 people in the first year. It's pretty unheard of.
And is this your guys' first race directing that you've done? Or have you done
it's mine,
for me?
sure.
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
first race directing, first race, obviously, and you had an awesome turnout. So I think this is great for someone who's maybe interested in putting a race on as well.
We're both really good preparers, and you can see it from how we get ready for races. We want to be prepared and over prepared, and I think that from day one, when it was solidified that, hey, we got a race and it's on Ultra Sign Up, and especially when it went on sale from day one, and I have to give Brian a lot more credit than myself, because I'm a professional procrastinator.
Yeah.
He kept me on track. Every week, if not every day, we were communicating about, tasks and who's doing what, and we need to check on this. And so, it just worked out well.
Just from like a logistics standpoint, or is that from like a promotional standpoint?
Both.
Both, yeah, absolutely.
He had great ideas. He had also good connections with graphics folks, and just that people would give us some ideas. Who do we use, Andy?
Atomic Graphics. Andy's Atomic Graphics.
Yeah, we used him, and he had some good options for us, and he worked with us really well and gave us some deals, some friend discounts and that kind of stuff. So everybody in the community that we run with, that's the great thing about the trail community, is that it's a group effort. And even though we're race directors, there's so many more people to thank and to give some credit to for making it to where it was as good as it was.
Yeah, we tried very hard. Every chance that we could, we tried to keep it about community. Whether that be giving the money to Big Hill Pond and the Rangers Association, or the aid stations were run by the local running clubs, Journeyman Racing, Lift Heavy Run Long, Memphis in Motion had the 50K aid
North
station.
Mississippi Endurance.
North Mississippi Endurance. So, the food after the race was local to the area. It wasn't, it was the local Mexican restaurant. We bought our Finishers Awards
Speaking Brian's language.
Yeah. I'm in. Count me in.
The Finishers Awards came from the museum, Buford Pusser Museum, which is where the name comes from.
The award is fantastic. It's, throw your medals aside. You're gonna fight over the
Yeah,
the
that's
big
what
stick.
I forgot to bring up here. It's in my truck.
I think that's it over there.
I have one
on that
over
dresser.
here. Yeah.
I've got the race director's edition in my truck, and I've totally forgot to bring that up.
The winners is like a full axe handle.
It's a full. The background of the race is, again, community. So McNairy County's known for Buford Pusser, who's a sheriff who cleaned up the area using. He didn't believe in guns. He used a big stick. And so walking tall was kind of his motto. And there have been movies, I think The Rock made one, but there were some legit movies made that were actually about his life in the 70s made. But so we kept it.
Walk tall and carry big stick.
Carry big stick. So the finisher's item is an actual beat stick coming from the Buford Pusser Museum in Adamsville, which is just great. I mean, we actually, it is a true, I think every single person that crossed the finish line pretended they were going to hit me with it once they got it. But we actually had one that was taken away by the airport TSA, airport security. So there was a friend of mine that came down from New Hampshire, Connecticut. And, he went to fly home and they wouldn't let him fly. They took it.
Really?
So I had to mail him UPS another finisher's item.
And there's also one for the last place person in there.
Yes,
a little stick.
There's a DFL stick, which is it's a tiny stick about like this.
A little toothpick?
It's a little axe handle toothpick with walking tall on it that is also custom made from the museum.
Yeah.
That is awesome.
The winner.
You mentioned you had someone come down from Connecticut. Is that
Connecticut.
What you said? How was the turnout? Was it primarily
we had some states.
local? Was it a lot of states?
It was amazing.
We had like 21 or
22 states last year registered.
Yeah, it was incredible.
It was great. The 25K, we sold 375 bibs for a 350 person race. 25K is almost sold out today, and we even added spots. I mean, we've got 60-something spots left.
With the added
So is there, is there a cap from the park, or you guys
we
just
put a
to keep
cap
it
on it
smaller?
ourselves. We did that for a lot of reasons, but one, we wanted to keep the integrity of the race right. You know, we want it to be something that you're proud of. And personally, I know we both like not smaller races. That's not the right answer, but trails can only take too much when you're, you know, you don't want to have to be crowded, and you want some alone time out there. I personally want to feel like you're alone. I want to feel like you're in the woods, you know, and if you have too many people, that just goes away. And so we just decided to put a cap on it.
Yeah, about that 300, 400 mark is kind of what
That's
we've
kind of your thought to keep it?
To keep it.
I felt pretty alone for about 5.5 hours.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did. And, you know, we stagger start them too. So the 50K goes an hour early.
Okay.
So that they will continue to get that. So you can kind of clear out, and then the larger race, the 25K, which is a heck of a race in its own rights, comes an hour later with 225 this year.
Oh, wow. Cool.
So, you guys, I know we talked about this in the past, and wanting to keep this true to like the classic ultra, put a time cap on it, time limit. And, you know, some people are for or not for that. I'm all for it, just to kind of, you know, to make the finish an achievement, you know, to get your finishing time and to get your finishers swag, like you have to finish in X amount of time. So what is the cap?
So the cap for the 25K is 8 hours, just because of the 50K is backed by. But the 50K is a true 9 hour. That's the historical cut for a 50K is 9 hours. And we cut it, I mean, we are spot on the cuts because both Sean and I, we battled back and forth on this.
It was from day one, and then probably half a dozen more times after that, just bringing it back up as
just to
conversation.
make sure, because, you know, you want your friends, these are our friends that are running and supporting us. But it came down to exactly what you said. We want it to be a true accomplishment. We want our race to be something that you're proud of. When you finish and you've got your bat or your challenge coin and you say that I've done the race, we want you to be excited, you know, something that you're proud years from now.
I can guarantee you that there are several people that came in probably within the last 10 to 15 minutes of the time cut that can attribute their efforts there towards the end, instead of just saying, I'm going to walk it in. You know, they gathered the effort and the fortitude to finish running where you could run, you know, hiking fast where you had to hike, and bringing it in time. And I think that time
you had to actually race it.
You had to
race it.
And so I think that was in their mind, and I know it can attribute to their success in finishing.
And that makes every finisher in my mind put the effort in the same as the first place guy. You know, the guy that finishes last. I mean, he was tickled pink to get the DFL stick. I mean, he got a free pair of shoes, too, for being last. But,
that's awesome.
I mean, he made it by like 30 seconds. And you should have seen the crowd of people that stood around the finish line
That's
because
what I was
they
gonna
knew.
ask.
Yeah.
And you can see him about, I don't know, a tenth of a mile or farther out. And people are screaming because everybody's watching the watch. And, you know, the clock's ticking and they're talking about tearing down the finish line. And, man, they were giving it everything they had.
That's some of the most exciting things you hear about.
We got some big hugs out
Ironmans
there,
where everyone goes back and starts watching those final finishers. I was going to ask, was it a similar thing? But
it was exactly, and I
was.
expect this year it'll be even bigger because people know that we're really going to turn the clock off. And, you know, and there's a reason to be there. We have a pavilion and we have beer and free food.
And
And
the burritos you were just
the
talking
burrito,
about.
yeah. I mean, so there's a reason to hang around and spend the day in the park with your friends. It's not just I'm here, I'm finished, and now I'm going to go home.
Yeah. One of the reasons why I immediately signed back up when they opened up and obviously wanted to offer some more support for the race is because we had such a great time last year. Like, I destroyed myself, and we went camping. Like, we stayed Friday and Saturday night and camped in the park and did the race. But then it wasn't just about the race itself. It was about like a weekend.
It's a weekend experience.
Yeah, with friends and with Chris, Coach Chris and his wife camped with us, and we had a blast.
So talk just a little bit about that. You know, say you had 22 different states. Were people staying out there? What is the lodging look like? How many camping spots are there? Someone's going to camp. Is it cabins available? Are you staying in Memphis and driving over?
Yeah, we were prepared for overflow camping, which didn't get is used as much as we thought, but we were prepared for an extra, 30 people or so to have sites if they wanted to just park,
remote camping,
throw a tent. Okay. No, it's right there by, in the general vicinity of the other campground.
Okay.
You're within a few hundred yards of that.
The park has 3 or 4 remote camp sites that you can, but nobody did that. Nobody wanted to be that far away from the race.
Okay, so it's all right, kind of the staging.
Literally, it's less than a quarter mile from the start line.
Okay.
Yeah, the course goes through the campground at the split and then at the finish as well. And the last aid station is basically right at the campground.
Peak of the campground.
And we RV hookups or stuff like that for someone.
No electricity. That's the only downside.
Yeah. You have a great shower and bathroom facility.
Okay. Yeah, they really were good. Yeah.
It's so you have that, but you got to deal with no power and you have to get your water from up there. But
So most people, were they staying in Memphis and coming?
So we had the gambit. The campground was completely sold out, plus a little overflow. We had people that drove up morning of, because like I said, it's only an hour and 15 minutes from Germantown.
Yeah.
And then we had people staying in every little hotel that you could find, 30 minutes outside of the park, which was great because the ranger was getting feedback. We talk about community. Well, the surrounding area was sold out. I mean, literally, they were just in love with it. Yeah.
You got utility companies that are up there doing work, and they bring people to stay for weeks on end, and they rely on some of these extended stay places and things like that. And like Corinth, which is only about 20 or so minutes away, they couldn't find anything to stay because Walking Tall had all the hotels and everything booked up.
That's awesome.
So, and this is one of the smallest, poorest communities in Tennessee. And to see all this going on was just, it's
income boost that they got.
It was the biggest event they've had in, I can't tell you. It was the biggest event the park's ever had. But awesome. As far as the community goes, it was right up there with anything they do, which was just amazing to see, which in turn gave us more support from the community as well. So it was just a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. And on the topic of community, you guys have a Facebook group that is probably the most charged up race Facebook group I've ever seen. Like,
what is that group?
Weeks. It's just the Big Hill Pond
Walking Tall group, and it's closed, but it doesn't mean it's closed for any reason.
Just about every day, one or the two of us are approving somebody.
Okay.
Yeah. We want everybody to be a member and a part of it, but we want to kind of keep out people that aren't like-minded. So that's the only reason it's closed.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you have interest in the race and interest in doing the race, join the group because you're going to find out everything you ever wanted to know about the race and the people racing. And for weeks on end, not before, it's like nonstop before, but for weeks after, and even to this day, people are posting in there, about what they're doing now and like how they're preparing for this year's Walking Tall. It's just it's kind of crazy to see a race community page have that much engagement, but it's probably why you have so many people.
And if you want to go out there and you don't know anything about the area and you want to check out the trail safely and feel good about it, that you're going to come out and not get too lost, if you just throw something out there, somebody will bite. Somebody will come and guide you.
And everyone gets to stay at Brian's place. Correct?
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
So
we were extra overflow camping.
So let's jump ahead. What's anything new for 2019?
So right off the top of my head, we are going to acknowledge finishers 2 or more times. So not if you did the 25K and then did the 50K, but if it's your second 25K or second 50K, the finishers items, the bat will be the same, but we're going to brand the bat to market so that you have something different as far as swag goes. Cool. Instead of getting the same medal every year. We want to stay true to the item and the Walking Tall. So we're going to keep the bats, but it won't be exactly the same. So you'll know I've done 2 of something, and we're going to continue that hopefully forever. So if you get 3 or 4, and then eventually, we'll do like everybody else. If you've got a 5-time finisher, maybe you get a jacket. So that's the first thing.
Like a green jacket?
Fitted.
So the course we're going to keep the same. We were talking about adding a second rope climb. Without adding any distance.
A rope.
Some people used a rope. You should see this. The pictures we had.
Yeah, it was fun.
It was a lot of fun to come around that corner and there's a hidden hill right close to the finish line that shocked some people.
You don't see it till you're right.
You don't see it till literally
You could literally put your hands down and
and climb it. But so by the railroad tracks, there's the trail used to go up and then down some stairs, and it got washed away. Well, I found the old trail. And so there are no more stairs, but we were going to add a rope there. But the railroad companies come back and actually fixed that part. So instead of having to run down the railroad
right away
easement for either right away for a little while, you're actually going to have trail this year. So that's a little better. But I kind of missed the fact that we're not going to have a second rope.
It was entertaining because it last year it rained the night before. So that hill being more like kind of a little more clay in it was pretty slick.
Over pretty quick.
It was pretty slick.
Yeah. The rope wasn't really needed in my opinion, but if it had rained all during the race, that's the reason.
Yeah, if it was sloppy, it would have.
Yeah, if it was sloppy, it would have been a tough.
We had been through too many slippery, sloppery races that year.
Yes.
Just to know what to expect, and we're pretty seasoned, and we have some good experience in some of these harsh conditions and technical terrain, and if it's hard for us, it's going to be hard for a lot of people.
Yeah.
So I'll add in there that this year we're happy to help support the hydration on course. So there'll be precision hydration products at every aid station on course. So you won't have to worry about your electrolyte needs out on course. So we're happy to support that way. Working on a few more things to amp things up a little bit, but we'll keep those on the DL for right now. Anything else new for 2019?
We're going to have a fire that goes along with the branding. It works out well, but one of the comments, we didn't have a comment box out there, but just from word of mouth, it rained that morning, sun came out for a little bit, and then it kind of got a little windy, I think, and people that were just finishing, if you've ever done a long endurance event like that, you lose all your electrolytes, and sometimes you get the shivers, and you get all that going on. And so one thing people kind of asked was like, "Hey, can we have a big campfire?
Did you
or
see
a big
me
bonfire?"
laid out on a picnic table for about 20 minutes?
So we're going to have a bonfire. It's going to give us a place to keep the brand hot and people to gather around and just be a little bit more of a social gathering area. And of course we have Flat Hat, which if some of you your triathlete guys have probably seen them, you'll see them again coming up at the Memphis May.
Yeah, they've been supporting a lot of races.
Man, they have been supportive to the community in a big way.
Yeah.
So, shout out to them because they're a great group of people. Some good cold beverages, and once again, they're supporting our race. So, big shout out to Mike Sadler and his group out there with Flat Hat.
Ultra's back again this year.
Awesome.
Thanks. Good call. Yeah, Ultra's back in, and they're going to do something special. They're a good shoe company and very supportive of these types of races. This is their bread and butter race group, and so we're just happy to have them involved again.
Cool.
Sweet. So let's to end this off, we want to throw in some tips on how to train properly for this. Not necessarily throw together a training program or anything like that, but just some things to focus on during your training, so that you can be better prepared for this race. Because I know when we initially talked about it, you had said you thought that people were going to probably be about 45 minutes slower than like a Sillamore course time. So it's not a fast course, not a slow course, but there is a ton of elevation. And so having done the full 50K, my number one thing would be prepare for the downhills more than the uphills. You want to do hill running, obviously. Make sure you're got some good strength built into your running, strength running and hill running. But you're going to run downhill so much and steepness to the point where it's almost uncontrollable. Like you have to slow you have no choice but to slow yourself down. Your quads are going to take the beating of their life. And so if you don't prepare for the downhill running, you're going to be sorry. And that's speaking from experience.
That's a consistency across a lot of everybody here. In fact, Brian brought it up last night on our trail run out at the Wolf River. It's very hard to train for downhills with that type of impact on you around here.
Yep.
So
Yeah, I mean, you can do a stairwell. I spend a little time at Clark Tower stairwell, going up and down, and the ups are great. So, but the stairwell doesn't do the slapping impact on your quads. It works your calves, but there's nothing. I can't.
It doesn't put the load into the knee and the quad that running downhill does, and not only that, you're running downhill, but you're also, some of it's loose terrain. You're kind of having to like turn your body sideways sometimes to try to slow yourself down. So it really is the only way to simulate it is to run downhill. Go run the course. Find the steepest downhill you can, and do downhill repeats on it. The only other thing that I've worked on with somebody in the past, we had an athlete who did Western States last year, and when we were preparing him for it, we did a bunch of during the strength training, we did a bunch of like depth jumps and depth drops. So we would do weighted drops off of like a 18-inch platform. And so just preparing the body to decelerate, at significant load.
Yeah, I do the same thing. When we were preparing, we just did GDR not too long ago, and we had a little bit different experience, I think, with the downhills. Our preparation difference was, he did Clark Tower stairs. I would go out to the forest and especially Robinson Hill. If you come around, not Jackson Hill, but the one that's just past the organized campground turnaround for Swamp Stomper, and you go down that, I would put on a 20 to 30 pound weighted vest and do hill repeats, which you get you the down and the ups in that location. So if any local people are looking for a place to do a little bit longer, you get about a 4/10 of a mile, almost half a mile of a continuous downhill grade that is steep enough to simulate walking tall, but throw on a little bit of extra weight. Put a pack on, put a bladder of water in it, get you at least 10 pounds to 20 pounds on you, and it makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. The other part is strength work. If you're not doing any type of strength training to build the foundation and build your body's durability, you're gonna, there's only so much you can gain by just slogging out tons of miles and just doing. If you're training on, especially on the road and flat and the trails that we have in the general vicinity here are all pretty flat, so, and very cushioned, and so if that's all you're doing, you're really not going to develop the fatigue resistance and durability that it's going to take to have a day that you're proud of. I would say maybe in a situation like this, having to go up and down 4,200 feet of elevation and a fire tower, or that's part of the fire. But anyways, so getting in the strength work is key. Obviously, just part of training in general is knowing the course. So I would say personally, if I know you guys have a few pre-run days and training days like that, if you're local, get out there and do the pre-runs. Even if you take it super easy, just know what's coming at you. That's one of the best things. If I hadn't gone out there, I think my race would have gone totally different, because the first 25K is, while it was well marked, I still would have got lost during the race. But having to go and figure it out the time before helped tremendously.
Yeah, there's that one location right as you come down off of Azalea, which I think it's gonna be a little different this year from what the railroad changed. But where you come down, and if you go by the old trail, I don't think it's there on the map anymore for the park, but you can look across the railroad tracks and see a marker on the tree across the railroad tracks, which you shouldn't really see until you go around, cross at the crossing, go up and down the hill, and then there you are. But that's where the old trail used to cross the railroad tracks. And so the railroad company doesn't allow that anymore, and the park doesn't do that for, obviously safety and insurance purposes. So that's one thing I think I remember seeing your Strava, that you had crossed, I think, the railroad tracks at that point.
Yeah.
And come back. Yeah. So he got a little extra mileage.
A little extra.
Yeah, get your bang for your buck out there.
So and then we got back to the car, and I was like, if this race is going to be 4 miles longer. But yeah. So my last big tip and this is kind of what we do a lot with, mostly with people training for ultras, is because the course can vary your time so much, we get everybody to train by time. So like, whereas you might go out and do and this happened to me a little bit in training, is you go out and do a 20-mile run and you're done in 3 hours. But you still got, if you went out and did that on the trail, it might take you 4, 5 more, so your body's just, if you do that and then you go here on this challenging course where you're going to have to be hiking and up and down and stuff like that, you're not going to be prepared for the duration that you're going to be out there.
Time on feet. Yeah.
Time on feet. Your 10-minute mile, in the first 5 miles is not going to be a 10-minute mile when you're on 26. I promise you that much.
Yeah.
No, I've come to expect no faster than a 12:30 to a 13-minute average out there. Doesn't matter how hard I want to run
And how would that compare to, just kind of relatively speaking for someone who's listening, how would that compare to, say, a road marathon?
I always say that even if you go off of your road pace, let's say you have your standard 10K pace or something's an 8-minute pace. Mm-hmm. You can add 2 minutes to that for sure at most trails, Shelby Forest especially. Wolf River, you can probably just add a minute to a minute and a half because it's fairly flat out there and fairly runnable. But Big Hill Pond, you're going to add 2 to 3 minutes to your pace.
Yeah, I usually say most athletes, depending on what level of athlete you are, you're just by stepping on dirt, you're going to slow down 30 to 45 seconds. And then when roads aren't trails, you're going to have more elevation on the trail. So you can basically add a minute just because you're going to have more elevation. No matter where you go, really. I mean, it's not graded to drive on, so it's going to be different. So I agree.
I see it every time somebody comes out and is a road runner and they just want to get into the trail running. The first thing that's going to happen is you're going to expect them to turn their ankle. And then the second thing is that they're going to sit there and be really concerned about their pace.
Yeah.
I'm like, don't look at your watch. Just go off of feel. And if you feel like it's tough, it's tough. It doesn't matter what pace it is. And you're getting that same effort level workout that you would on the road.
Yep, for sure. I'm going to add one more training tip, and it sounds like people need to be really prepared to do a hard stair effort followed by a fireball shot.
Yes.
Should,
work that into your training.
That's right.
Just work a few of those intervals in.
And always invite
practice your
Friday
drinking.
night.
See if you can sneak a flask of Fireball into ATC Fitness and get on the stair bill and
add a third bottle when you're running. You got your orange mud and a little flask.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
All right, guys. We appreciate you guys coming out and giving your time. And got anything to end with?
I got one shout out that we forgot to do. It's a huge one.
All right, go for
Bank of Maneri County.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I could not go.
McCall Wilson.
Yes.
Yeah.
McCall, I'm sorry we forgot during the little shout out section we did a few minutes ago.
Yes.
But Bank of Maneri County, thank you so much.
Huge supporter.
Yeah.
It's just hard to say it. If you are live in that area, even if you don't, bank with them. They know what they're doing over there.
Man, they are all about community. And the race started at 503C, Friends of Big Hill Pond. And of course the bank is doing all our banking and helping us out there. And, they're just all about giving back. I went over to his office and just looking around and hearing some of the stories, do business with them. They are the real deal and they care about you and they care about nice things where you live. And I can't say enough. Thank you.
Yep. McCall's a good dude for sure. And ran the 25, or he ran the 50K last year, didn't he?
He did.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Good times. All right. Appreciate you guys hanging out, listening, watching. We will catch you guys next time. Adios.